Hello and welcome to Wisdom Within with Tina and Tanya. We are going to cover all things shadow work, what it is, how to do it, all the good stuff. So make sure you stay tuned. Now, if you're done conforming to others' expectations, you're done suppressing your wants and needs, and you're done feeling like life has no meaning, and you're ready to build that supportive relationship with yourself. You're ready to address resentments and disappointments that come from suppressing your needs and wants, and you're ready to transform your life from the inside out, then you're in the right place. We're going to teach you how to do this using practices that will support your mind, body, and spirit. So before we jump into this amazing topic of shadow work, Tina, will you kind of help set the space for us a little bit? This is a space. We need it. We need it clear.
Yes. Right. So I'm going to use, I have a Palo Santo spritz that I'm using today. It's kind of like, and you're using what? Your bitch be
My bitch
gone
be
today?
gone. Yeah, I'm using that today too.
Yeah,
It's a
I
big
know. I feel
topic.
like I need to just kind of, okay, so close your eyes and let's take a deep breath in. I feel like I need to pull in all the energies that we've let go. Just kind of pull everything back into your body. And imagine that you have roots growing from the base of your spine and the bottom of your feet. And let those roots grow down through the floor, down into Mother Earth. Connect with Mother Earth's nurturing energy. And let those roots just expand out and allow Mother Earth to just hold you stable and strong. If you have any energies or any feelings or any frustrations, anything like that, just send them up to the sun to be burned off. Okay, take a deep breath in. You can open your eyes.
Thank you. I kind of didn't want to come back from that. I'm like, let's just stay here for a minute. So, shadow work. Let's talk shadow work. I know this weekend, as we were recording this, we just completed a full moon weekend of a full moon, and it was a lot. There was a lot of shadow coming up for both of us, a lot of let's just call it what it is. The shadow is the shit that lives beneath the surface, right? And a lot of the work that we do in healing with ourselves and our clients and the people that we work with, friends, even conversations that we have, there is an element of shadow that, that is part of what makes us human. So I love to be able to dive in to a little bit about, like, let's demystify the shadow work, what that is, because I think a lot of times people steer clear from it and maybe are even fearful of doing shadow work because we have been programmed to believe that the shadow is evil. The shadow is bad. The shadow is like the devil stuff, right? That we hear in, I almost said pop culture, but well, we'll call it that. Why not? But we hear that so much and it creates like a fear in that. But really, what we're referring to here, the shadow work that we do is actually the darkness that lies within us, but it is experiences that we've had. It is the blame and shame and things that we have kind of received or put on ourselves or that were put on us by others. It's really those parts of us that we want to keep hidden. It is those inner thoughts that we have, that inner expression, those things we don't want others to see, like the stuff we want to take to the grave, literally, right? And it could be actions that we have, like things we have done to others. It could be things that others have done to us. It can be, yeah, like not only just experiential, but it can even be thoughts. It can be the sky is the limit, right? There are so many things that can live there. It can be the fears that we have, the insecurities, insufficiencies, all the things that lie under the surface that we try so hard to keep covered. And so really the shadow work is shining a light on them. It doesn't mean we have to put it on social media. This is not what we say, hey, guess what I just found in my shadow. I mean, you can, but that is definitely not required. And I think that's another thing that prevents us from wanting to go there, is almost this belief that if I uncover something that maybe I wronged someone in my past, now I have to go to them and apologize. And I actually don't subscribe to that belief at all. But we do need to be aware of it and acknowledge it and recognize it's there for ourselves so that we have a deeper understanding of ourselves, who we are, why we do what we do, really be able to release some of it, to let it go, to heal, and then to really help us progress and grow and learn from those parts of our shadows. Do you have anything to add with that? Did I miss anything there?
No, I think you covered um, everything that I was thinking too. I mean, it's all that stuff underneath. And like you said, you don't need to go out and tell people when you're doing shadow work. You don't need to share it with anybody. It's for you. And when you start doing that work, which for me, I'm one of those people that when shadow work comes up, I'm like, no, 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 you know,
Go away, go away.
I don't want to do this. But it is where the magic lies.
Mhm.
When we start looking at those shadow aspects of ourselves, then that's where we start understanding ourselves at a deeper level, for one.
Mhm.
And for two, we start releasing those things they hold us back, right? They just kind of are, we have that shame, or those little feelings of uh insecurities, the little, all those little things. And when we dig deeper and find out what caused those little things or whatever, then we can release it. And that's when we can start to be lighter and, free, basically freer,
Mhm.
and being able to be truly more authentic and be our authentic selves.
And really stepping into our gifts. I think that is another thing too. And there's a couple, like one thing I didn't mention also is that well, so I do think there are some shadow things that we consciously keep hidden, but the majority of shadow work is actually the unconscious mind, the
Oh,
unconscious
yes.
parts of ourselves. So the shadow work is to bring the unconscious and make it conscious so that
Hmm.
we know what to do with it. And one visualization that I love with this is imagine your child or being a child, and it's in the middle of the night and the full moon is coming in and shining its beautiful brightness into your room, and it's hitting something and casting a shadow on the wall, and it's scary. It's a monster. It's like we're scared. We want to hide under the covers because there's a monster in our bedroom. And when we scream and holler, mom comes in and flips on the light, and we realize it's our very favorite stuffed animal on the floor. And it was just the way in which the light was hitting it and casting this big shadow. To me, that is shadow work. I always, when I start into this or when I have something come up, I'm like you, I'm like, ooh, I don't want to see it because it's the monster shadow on the wall. But when we flip on the light switch, most of the time I'm like, oh, that's it. That's
Hmm.
it. That's all it was.
Right.
it's just this thing, you know? And
Uh-huh.
so I think almost it's one of those things where we almost fear going in and doing the work for what might be there, what might come up. But when we actually do it, we there it's so like it's been, especially as I work through this with clients, we have those situations where we shine light on it. And it's I remember I had this one client, she had been carrying this right, this rock, this weight within her for 30 years. And we started working on it. We did the shadow work around it, and it illuminated it in a different way. And she was able to just in my office just release it. She's like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Like she was able to look at it from today's version of herself with that fully developed brain and mind and all those things, and really just let it go, viewing it from a different perspective. And that little moment that we did in under an hour, well, that particular piece of it was probably 5 minutes, and it was life changing for her. So I think of how much we do to keep that buried and like hold on to that. And then when we just turn on the light switch, we're like, oh, well, hell, I can let that go.
Mhm.
Skip on out of here,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And I think that's also why it's hard too, because it's not surface. It's
Mhm.
easy to come up with things that are on the surface, but when we're going down deeper, we have to intentionally kind of dig through those layers, and it can be a little bit labor intensive too.
Yeah, and it can be, you have to you have to sit with yourself, and you have to stay and not and it can be a little bit of work, but it's not where it's but then like you said, the reward is like, oh, feeling that lightness and being so much lighter.
Yeah.
And when because like for me, I'm just like, I for some and it's all, I just know that's how I am. I will fight it, and I will not, I will avoid it as much as I possibly can, because it's like I just don't want to go there. I just don't want to go there. And then, like you said, half the time, 3/4 of the time, probably, when I do go there, I'm like, oh, that's all.
Hmm.
And that's what it was. And in the meantime, because I'm avoiding all this, I'm being triggered right and left from because of all these things. And then, well, after that work is done, the trigger's gone, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, okay, I can move on now.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think I was given like a special cosmic gift with all of this as well. I mean, I see that within astrology, human design, like, okay, I'm a projector. So I have that bird's eye view, being able to look down and see the
Mhm,
train wreck coming. So I do have a little different of a perspective when I'm seeing others in this, and
mhm.
so I have that. I'm also a Scorpio, so I have I love the depths.
The
I
dark,
love
yeah.
transformation. I love the dark. I love what's taboo. I also have my Mercury is also in Scorpio. So I'm the detective. I want so it's like Scorpio on crack a little bit too there,
Mhm,
because I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to, okay, that's taboo. Why? Tell me why. I want to know why. I want to try it, and I want to see if I subscribe to that or not.
mhm,
I also have a strong trust in my intuition. Like there are things where I'm like, yeah, I'm not going there. I don't need to deep dive on that. That's
mhm,
a no for me. So I mean, I have a lot of that going on too. But I think the beauty in that is really being able to understand the patterns that we keep repeating, the triggers that keep coming up, the resistance around doing that shadow work, like being able, like when you can see that in others. For me as a projector, I learn by watching others, and then I'm like, oh, I see where I'm doing that too. It's almost like I have a little bit of that. um but one thing I love to remember is that if it's coming up for you, it is ready to be healed. Like that is how we know. And when we have those memories or those triggers, or why is this coming up out of the blue now? I thought I'd gone through this all the whatever. If it's there and it's rising, there's another layer. Even if you've already dealt with that topic and you think you've done, it's complete. It's like, if it's coming up again, there's yet another layer. There's something more that can be worked on. And I have noticed that when we do like what you're describing, push it, push it, push it, resist, 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 it comes back louder and louder and louder
Mhm.
until it's like screaming at you. And then it's like,
Yes,
you don't have a choice now. We're dealing with it.
it's time. Yep. And I've, because I'm that person that suppresses, you know, and I can't say that I'm learning. Okay, so I'm what, 60 years old now, and I'm learning that when it starts coming up, okay, it's time to start working on it. But most of my life, I was that person that suppressed, suppressed, suppressed.
Mhm.
And I've had so many cosmic two by fours over the top of my head because it's like all of a sudden it's like that thing that kept coming up, all of a sudden it's right there. And it's like you are dealing with this and you're dealing with it now. And then once you do, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, but it's that I don't know. It's so like I said, I don't know what it is with my profile, the generator. We don't like that too much. We don't like having to deal with the shadow work. And it's like what I told you when we first started. This is your realm because you're the shadow work queen.
I know, I'm over here like, threaten me with a good time, you know? I just, well, I think the reason I love it is not because I love like pain and torture of others or whatnot.
Right.
It is really because I just have such a strong value. Like, I value this work to the depths. I mean, as dark and as deep as
Mhm.
it is, I value it to that extent because I've seen it in myself, I've seen it in others, and I truly believe this is where big change happens. Um, and I think that like when and because anyone can do this. And that is something that I see other people, no, I can't do it. I can't go there. I can't deep dive into that. You can. You absolutely can. You can do this work on your own. You can do this solo. If you're like, I need support and help, there's people like myself and Tina who would love to be able to support you on your journey with this. There's energy work that you can do to help it. That is probably one of my very favorite ways of doing shadow work, is not only working through these things, because really the work is asking questions, it's being curious, it's deep diving. Doing that work alongside with Reiki is so helpful to me because that's a lot of what Reiki has done for me, is bringing those subconscious things to the surface. um Not all at once, it's not a floodgate, it's not overwhelming, it's little bits at a time so that they can be healed. And not only are you working on the energetic piece, but then you're also working on the mental, the emotional, all those layers all together kind of simultaneously, and the work itself is just, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think not only can everybody do it, but I really love to point out that not everybody has to do it the same way. I I want to go deep, and I want to go deep to like right now. I want to
Mhm.
just put on the mask and go right down. I have some clients who want to tiptoe and just kind of go very slowly, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong depth. And
Mhm.
it's not like you're better if you go deep or you're better if you go slow. It doesn't matter. The important part is just showing up and being willing. And I'm a big, I believe in intention, and I believe that our thoughts and words are spells. So I am really using words. Words are my thing. Words are a big deal for me. So I'm using a lot of words like, show this to me in a way that I can see it without, I don't want to be scared. I don't want it to be a super struggle. I just like, be gentle is kind of the words that I will use, be gentle with me as I go through this. And I really do feel like that has an impact as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
have you noticed anything like that for you?
Yeah. I agree. I know when I do. I'm one of the tiptoers, so, but I've noticed when I do when I start doing the work that, yeah, definitely watching your words, because I feel like for me, words are a prayer that we're saying, and if we're not using our words in a way that are beneficial, it's,
Excuse me.
are you releasing some stuff?
I am releasing. It is, yep, which I need to do. So keep releasing through here. Sneeze, yawn, who knows what we'll have come up.
You're right. But yeah, so being intentional with the wording and being intentional with as I start going into this and talking to my guides or however I'm doing it, if I'm doing a meditation or if I'm doing a journaling exercise or whatever, just kind of keeping that intention of, um, you know, what is this? What is this? And yeah, I have to be kind of gentle too with myself because I've always been scared of it, you know,
Yeah.
and so it's just that, just doing it. What does it look like to you? So like when you're doing shadow work with somebody or in a session or on for yourself, I'm sure there are different ways that you do it, but what are some of the ways that you do?
Questions. It's being, you are the detective, and whether if I'm helping someone go through, we're working through that in a coaching session or something, or I'm doing this for myself, I do the same practice regardless. And it is asking questions, being curious. Curiosity is the antidote to judgment. It's what brings the subconscious conscious. It's really what helps us get to the bottom of it. And with some clients, I've watched them try to sidestep and detour. So I'll point that out in a minute, but it's really like when I'm with someone, I'm listening to them talk and I'm listening to their story and I'm looking for that piece that my intuition's like right there, like I can sense it when it's there. I'm like, ooh, that's it. So I do that with myself too. And I do it through journaling as if I'm sitting in a coaching session with you. I can journal myself and here's what's going on and blah, blah, blah. And pretty soon, just through writing, I'm like, this is where I need to go deeper. Here's where that little bit of a trigger or the wound or the pain is. And then I start asking questions like, what about that brings up this emotion or this physical sensation? I mean, when I'm sitting down to do that work, I'm very open. I'm very intentionally open. What am I sensing? What does my physical body feel? And I don't always feel something. And I think that's important to know that that's not a requirement, but am I thinking thoughts? Am I knowing like what senses are being activated with all of this? And I want to kind of key in on some of that. And especially if I notice a sense of anxiousness or a little discomfort that I feel like I want to move away from, because that's what we do, right?
Mhm.
Our bodies are like, they're trained to keep us safe. They're trained to
Mhm.
protect us and they're so good at it. So anytime you feel a topic where there's some resistance and you don't want to go there, even if you're not ready to go there today, write that down because that's going to be where you're going to go back to is what about that thought? What about that person? Whatever that is. And you're going to go back to that. Okay, let's talk more about that. And
Mhm.
I journal that out or I will speak it out. And I'm asking more questions. I've heard people say go 7 layers deep. I really encourage you to just go as deep as you can. 7 layers, 10 layers, I don't really care. Don't put a number on it, but and what else? And what else? And what else about that? Where did it come from? How old was I? Was it taught to me, said to me? Was it something as a child I inferred as a meaning? Like where did it come from? And not from a place of judgment and anger. I'm not angry at someone teaching me this. I'm just curious. I want to know where it came from. And then from there, I love to be able to start asking, why does this get to be correct? Why does this get to be right? do I still subscribe to this belief? Now that I'm looking at it from this age and this development brain, looking back on this event, how do I see it differently through a different lens, and really being able to journal that out, write that out, look at it, inspect it from all the different angles at that level, because that's where the awareness and the understanding and the compassion and the love for yourself can come in. Um, and and then even asking myself, what would I have needed in that moment? What support would I have needed? Sometimes it's just oh, well, I just needed to look at it this way. Okay, cool, we're done. Other times it's a little bit more. And again, the important piece is not anger that I didn't get it. It is just curiosity. What could I have used and from whom? And now what can I do with this information? So it takes some time and that takes practice. And I think the thing that makes it challenging is the discomfort. As
Mhm.
I'm going through and I'm writing this and I'm sitting in it, I'm fidgety. I'm everything in us that is distraction comes, like, I want it. I
Yeah.
want to numb it. I want to get up and go to the bath. I'm like that little kid who doesn't want to go to bed. Mom, I need
Right.
water. Mom, I need to go to the bathroom. Mom, I need you to tell me a story. Like, that is where we are in shadow work. Is, I mean, I can even feel it in my chest right now, and
Yeah.
I'm not even doing the shadow work. And I'm
Yeah.
like, everything in me is like, oh. So squirm a little, let yourself move a little, stand up if you need to, jump around, play your drum, do something to be able to kind of help it move through. But it's like I'm helping get the energy out, but I'm coming back to this topic. And that to me is one way in which you can kind of get there,
Mhm.
um, in that way.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I have done similar exercises. I'm not as good as you with that. And now, like in coaching with somebody, I can. I'm like, and what else? And or I can with somebody else, it's intuitive, just like, oh, I know right where that, and I can ask the questions. But when like coaching myself, it's harder for me. My favorite way is meditation. So I go deep into meditation, and I have found that having somebody else lead a meditation for me is like helps me do, much better. So um, there's one meditation that just is really powerful, and it's that Reiki. There's a Reiki meditation where we go into timelines and you go back into the timelines. And that is a very powerful one. And that one has helped me in many, in situations where I've had um, trauma or different things that have come up in that. And so that helped me to see exactly where that was, right? And what was going on and what happened, and helped me to kind of release that. So that's a deeper, that for me, that's easier, to have somebody guide me in a meditation, or to find a guided meditation on Insight Timer or whatever, that is one that's going to take you deep to that deeper level. Now I like to do um when I'm um starting out, or I like to do them on my own with just music, and then just kind of be like, okay, this is my intention, is we're, we're going here. And that helps me to be able to see what's going on, and better than journaling. I can journal, but I'm that person. I am that person that is going to be like you say, you get fidgety or whatever. I go to a certain level in my journaling, and I'm done, and I won't pick the pen back up. I'll go pick up the drum, I'll go do whatever, but I won't pick the pen back up. So for me, the work is more in my in my head, I guess, or with the meditation or whatever. So
The energy piece and being able to
yeah.
bring that through. And
Yeah.
I think that's important too, because is it resistance or is it complete? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
that's going to be a person to person differentiation. It's also going to be a session to session. And I think
Mhm.
it's okay. I think, like, just let it be what it is, whatever the session brings. Like, sometimes I'll sit down and I'm like, okay, am I in total distraction mode or do I feel complete? And I actually feel complete today. So we're going to leave it there. Um,
Mhm.
or I'm out of time. This is all the time I have. I'm complete today because of it. And I may or may not pick it back up. Like there's no, I think just again, removing the rules, which is a good thing. Get rid of those damn rules.
Right.
Um, but just allowing it to be, this isn't something though that you want to do when you've got 5 minutes to before you have to go get ready for work. I mean, this is something that if it's coming up, definitely jot it down so that you know what's kind of coming up for you. But this is something that takes a little bit more time. Um, but I also feel like there's, that other piece that we don't want to leave out, which is some of it we don't have to process mentally. Like some of the shadow, it's inherited, it's coming back from ancestors, it's not ours. So for us to try to put this life experience onto why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, it doesn't always work that way because it's not something we experienced in this life. And so being open to that as well, where maybe there isn't a reason, or, I don't have a reason to be feeling this way. Okay, cool. Maybe this is a witch wound from centuries past. Maybe it's programming that we have that, we've never experienced that, but here we are having these fears, these concerns, these whatever, and allowing that to be a possibility as well. And and you can find that with this, where it's like, okay, I've never had this life experience in this lifetime for this stuff to be coming up for me, these fears, these concerns. So it can be past life. You can, do Akashic records, you can do past life regressions, you can also just do a lot of ancestral healing and the work around that. And even, okay, where could these fears have possibly come from? I do that a ton, especially this last weekend. We had a lot of the witch wound stuff coming up, and the fear of being seen, the fear of truly stepping into yourself. If I'm authentic, I will be burned. I will literally be burned. Like that fear behind that comes clear back from centuries ago. And still doing the work around it is still valuable because those things, even though that's never happened to me in this lifetime, I've never witnessed anything like that, it still prevents me from showing up in my full authentic self. So
Mhm.
that's all part of shadow work as well, is not just what has been part of this lifetime, but everything that's in the collective for since the beginning of time.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And it just reminds me that the working with my ancestors and all as you were saying that, I was thinking of all this pain that I was feeling when I first started working with my ancestors, and I was working with the Native American ancestors, and how I could feel, and I'm feeling it now. It's like I can feel that heartache and that pain and that, because of what happened to them. And then on the other side, I have the I have so many conflicts with it, but because I have some different heritages. But when I first started working with that, it took me a while to understand that that's what it was. It was like all of a sudden I'm feeling all these feelings, and I'm like, what the heck? And then realizing that that's what it was. And then it is that fear. It's like, because I had this fear of speaking out, or talking about the Native American ways, or talking about, all these things, or even acknowledging that I am, and so it's like, we have those things that they do affect us, but when we realize what they are, it's like, oh yeah. And that's the shadow work there.
And one thing that you said reminded me of what I think we had mentioned this yesterday, or that I don't know, in a previous conversation. But really, that why do we feel like we have to do all of this alone? And I think that that is part of the shadow work. I am a very solo worker with stuff like this. I like to do this work with my journal, with a candle, like
Mhm.
in my vibe and in my little hollow, and just loving it.
Yeah.
That's where I really do enjoy it. But I'm not doing it alone in that time. I'm asking for my guides. I'm asking for, and I usually kind of set the space with the guides of the highest truth and compassion. Like I'm requesting that presence to help me with this. I do that, even like we were talking about the drum, like, why are we not
Mhm.
drumming? Like the last couple of days leading up to this full moon, you and I have been like, man, whew, there
Yeah.
is some shit going on. And then we drummed
Right.
last night and it's like, why have we not been drumming for the last 5 days? So it's remembering that, I mean, we try to figure it all out. We try to work through it all ourselves. And so much of it, like we can literally drum and help it like move that crap through us. We can do self Reiki. You can do a cleansing chakra balancing meditation. There's so many, even if you don't have a drum and you're not a Reiki practitioner, you're not limited. There are so
Mhm.
many ways that you can do this, and just calling in those guides and asking for that support. I believe that is helpful. I believe that it brings things to memory more quickly. I believe it helps clear it and cleanse it and pull it through our bodies more quickly. And in that aspect, even if I'm sitting down by myself alone in my house with my little animals and whatever, I'm not doing that work alone. I very much feel guided. I feel like the things that come to my memory or come to my mind or come on the page are not random. They're not coincidence. It's all part of that process for me. And I believe that every time we sit down to do that intention, we sit down with support of the unseen.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree with that. And I know even if you don't believe that they're there, they're there.
Mhm.
And
Or
you
you
can
want to call it
ask.
your highest self, like
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it and whatever you
right.
resonate with, it's there.
It's there. Yes, there is that spiritual aspect of it, I guess. Um, and it's I forgot what I was gonna say now, but yeah, it's like, oh, you can ask them. You can ask your higher self. You can ask, they're there to support you, those guides or your higher self, your whatever the universe, whatever it is that you work with, if you do, it's they're there to support you, but they need you to ask them. So when you ask and be open to what you're asking for, be open to receiving that, then yeah, like you said, they're going to guide you. They're going to guide you to what needs to come up right now, or what's going to help you to clear that, or what's going to help you to move through that. And the drum is like the it's a miracle worker sometimes. And I feel like I forget that sometimes because I get going on with my day, and I make drums and I work with the animal um spirits and the guy, whatever, I work with all that animal energy, and I still have days or weeks when I forget how powerful that medicine is, and
Mhm.
it will help to just move whatever it is that's coming up, and it will bring that stuff up. So you definitely need to be aware of that. If you're drumming and you're drumming with intention, it can bring up those things and then help you to release them. So
Mhm. Yeah, and the thing I think that's important to remember is nothing's going to come up that you're not prepared or able
yes.
to release, to cope with, to handle, like whatever your phrase is. Like if it's coming up, trust that it's ready and that you are ready. You're strong enough, you're prepared. Just believe that. That doesn't mean that you need or maybe even should do that alone. I think
Mhm.
that's important too, especially if you have really deep rooted, very deep, like in this lifetime, sexual trauma, that kind of stuff. If it's coming up for you and you have maybe not dealt with or processed that, know that it's coming up because it's telling you it's time to tackle this. But that's not necessarily one that I would recommend you do alone. Like if
Mhm.
that's what's coming up for you, um that's when it's time to seek the therapist. That's when it's time to reach out to that professional who has the tools to help you through that trauma. That's not you and I, right? Like
Right.
I mean, I have worked in that field. I have so much knowledge in trauma, how it's created, how it,
Mhm.
all the things, but that's not the work that I do. I refer a lot of people out to therapists in my area. I definitely recommend, if that's where you're kind of curious, or you're like, yeah, that's where I need to go. EMDR therapists are, there's emdr.org, I think is what it is. You can find one near you. There's also ART, which is not art therapy. It's actually
Mhm.
ART. I don't remember what it stands
Mhm.
for, but it's another trauma technique. So really what you're looking for are trauma specifically trained therapist practitioners that
Mhm.
can help you through those things that are coming up for you like that. And you can do energy work in addition to therapy. And that's one thing I love to remind people is, again, when you go to therapy and you're releasing and you're talking about and you're processing all of these things, one of my very favorite things to do is within, either the same day or the next day, to have an energy session of some sort, or do your own energy clearing meditation to help you release that crap that just got shaken up.
Mhm.
Um, so I do want to bring that out there, like, as much we want to help you, but that's outside of our pay grade, right?
Exactly, exactly. And yes, definitely. I
We do
agree with
have
that.
people that we can, in fact, it would be good to include like a link down below in the
Mhm.
description for people to go to find an EMDR therapist. So
Mhm.
I'll make myself a note and add that in there. So, um,
Okay.
because that EMDR is probably one of my most favorite techniques for that. I've done that myself. So I'm a big fan of it and believe in the power of that. So we'll have that in the description down below.
Sweet. That's cool.
Yes. I do want to go a little bit into like why and what's the benefit, because a lot of it feels like, well, if I'm over here living my best life, completely blind to my shadows, why do I want to draw attention to it? And I do believe that there is an innate desire in all of us to live our true purpose, whatever that may be. That's not being this type of job or this type of job, but is who we are and really being able to live authentically. We know that because we really struggle when we're put in a box, when we're put in a cage, when people try to put us in a type, there's that, don't put me in a box. Like there is that little bit. I mean, mine comes out in a little bit of sass and rebellious, like, oh no,
Mhm.
you did not try to put me in a box. But there is this desire for us to truly be seen for who we are. And I do believe that we all have that within some form or fashion within all of us. Mine would look different from yours, all that, but it's there. And this is one way in which we can do that, because first we really do need to see ourselves. We need to be able to understand that. So I want to give a little example that you actually helped me walk me through a couple years ago. The word spiritual. Remember this? You probably knew
Yes.
I was going to bring this one up, huh? So we were having conversations back and back, Tina and I, a couple years ago, and it must have been around December, because it was like finding the word for the next year. You know how we usually in
Mhm.
January we choose our word that's going to be for the year. And my word that I ended up choosing was spiritual. And I, at the time, that was like a 4-letter word. And I drop those like it's hot. I can talk like a sailor without blushing, but that word just, it got under my skin. It irritated me. And I remember you asked me some questions, some of these questions. I don't remember exactly what they were, but like,
Mhm.
why, what about that bothers you? What is it? And it really, like, I withdrew a little bit and really thought about it. Like, why? It's just a word, right? It
Mhm.
is just a word. Words are neutral. And the meaning that we assign to the words is what makes them positive or negative. So I was like, what's going on with this? Because I mean, I had a physical reaction, not, I mean, I was like, oh, I still almost, there was heat. Like I can take
Yep.
myself back there. And I remember how that felt. So I went through this process and I didn't have to journal it. I didn't have to go through all of that. Not everything has to require that much depth.
Mhm.
It was just me sitting with it and kind of like pondering, contemplating that word and really trying to figure out what about it. So when I'm starting to like sift through all those layers, I realized that I had an image of what that word spiritual meant from my upbringing, from religion, from the culture and the community. This is, I had this word in a box, that this is what spirituality looked like, and that was not me. Nothing about that is me. And I remember telling you, I don't want to start talking about being a spiritual person because I don't want others to see me in that group and being a part of that.
Mhm.
And so that was a huge pivotal moment for me. That is shadow work, was getting to the bottom of it. I could forever just have hated that word and been irritated by it and triggered by it and kind of sassy about it. But being able to do that shadow work around it really opened my eyes to what was really going on with me. And then I really just started looking at it and being like, do I see myself in that same way? And I'm like, no, I actually don't. Do I really care if do I care how other people see me? If I say I'm a spiritual practitioner or I'm a spiritual person, I don't give a shit what box people put me in. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody's, for me to try to negate that. I mean, can you imagine? Every single person is going to have a different view of that word. I would
Right.
spend all of my time and energy trying to paint a picture instead of just truly stepping into who I am. I am a
Mhm.
spiritual person. I have spiritual gifts. This is part of me.
Mhm.
And it looks my way. It doesn't look your way. It doesn't look her way. It doesn't look his way. It looks my way. And
Mhm.
so that was huge for me to come to that realization that that was my problem with it. And from there, I was able to start letting it go. I didn't just drop it like it's hot and walk away.
Mhm.
It took some time to kind of warm up to it and start looking, but it released the connection. It
Mhm.
released the baggage, so to speak, around that word. And then from there, it was like, okay. And then I'm like, what do I think about those people that I have in that little box? And I was like, I don't hate them. I don't have a problem with them. That is their way of spirituality. This is my way. And it was like I've released it for the most part. I mean, there's still a little bit there. Well,
Yeah.
there's still a little bit there, but for the most part, like it's gone. And I get to truly say that spirituality is one of my values, where before I wouldn't have even, I would have actually been more irritated and pissed off at that word, where now it's one that I absolutely love. And it was my
Mhm.
word for that year. And it brought
Mhm.
in so much spiritual growth that year as a result. So to me, that's where the power comes in. It was one little word and it seems so insignificant, but when I look at my, that was not this year, so it would have been the 2023 year
Mhm.
word. Holy cow, you know,
Yeah.
what a
And
transformation.
and we, those closest to you saw that. We saw how, I mean, it almost felt immediate. It was like this huge transformation that just happened, and you were stepping into your authentic self. And that's what the shadow work helps you with. And, it's like being like what you said, finding that purpose, because we all want to have a purpose. And um being true to ourselves and being that, stepping into our authenticness, and not having those masks that we so many times um wear. Most of us have a mask for this and a mask for this and the mask with that person and a mask with that person. And when we do the shadow work and we are able to release those masks, then we're stepping into our authenticness and being truly who we are meant to be, and be on purpose,
Mhm,
standing in our purpose. So,
mhm. I love it. And I think that it brings up a good point of how to get to know what your shadows are. And that is, what word gets under your skin? There was a previous chapter in my life where the word love, I mean, I wanted to send people condolences when I saw we're getting married. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I am so sorry. Here are some black roses. I mean, I was
Mhm.
really, that was a trigger for me. And I did some work around that. And I don't feel that way anymore. Now I can genuinely say congratulations and be happy for people. But it's like, those are clues. And I think that's what I love. that's where my Scorpio comes in, my little detective self of like, ooh,
Mhm.
all these little things are clues. They're puzzle pieces. And I believe in this life, we are putting together our own puzzle. And when we have those little things come up, it's like, oh, I know where that fits. That makes me that much more complete. It makes me understand myself that much more. And like, what a beautiful gift,
Right.
that we
Yeah.
get to, I guess for me, it's play. I get to play
Mhm.
in this way. I mean, I know it's work and I know it's a challenge, but to me, this is my playground. I'm like, ooh, let's have
Yeah.
that dark conversation, shall we? I'm like, I light up when
Mhm.
with that. Um, so yeah, it's a beautiful, I really do, I really do believe to the core that it is a beautiful process. Does not mean it's all sunshine and rainbows, and it doesn't mean that we just skip along singing, but therein lies the beauty, is that we've gone through something and come out like, this is the phoenix, right? This is coming out of the ashes. And there's so much confidence, there's pride, there's self-love, there's compassion that comes on the other side of this work.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. I've got full body chills as you're talking about that because it's like such a powerful, so powerful. And it can be as simple as like what you said, that word. What is that word that's triggering you right now? Or, and then just sitting with it.
Mhm.
Contemplation is like huge. And so, but it can be going to the depths and, but and if you feel like if you're like me and it's easier to have somebody guide you, do it, you know, find somebody who you trust and have them, you know, ask them to guide you somehow, meditation or whatever, asking the questions, even if it's just sitting down with the journal and having somebody write, question you.
Mhm.
And that, so I feel like whatever it is that feels um easier to you, I'm not going to say it's easy, none of it's easy,
No.
but whatever feels more um
Correct.
correct for you, right, then do that,
Mhm.
because they're like, we have no rules, like what you said, let's release those rules, but let's also find those things that are feel right for you and that are your thing and
Yeah.
what's going to help you to get there, because it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Mhm. Well, and I do want to bring up one more thing because it reminded me about human design, because within
Oh
human
yeah.
design,
Mhm.
we have, if you look at your human design body graph, there are little lines of red or black or both, and they're called gates. Very short,
Mhm.
very short description. But each of those gates are paired with a gene key or a gate. It's coming from the Chinese I Ching. It's part of that ancient divination tool. So there's a lot with those, but each of those gates carry a shadow, a gift, and a siddhi. So there are 3 levels in it. And your gates, it will point to you, your shadows. It will give you a roadmap. I see it in mine. Oh man, I see it in mine. And I'm like, oh, there's that fear of inadequacy again. But it's very important for me because I recognize it now. And once we know they're there, we see them and we see them coming up, and then we know what to do with them. It's not a matter of killing it or squashing the shadow or overcoming. It's recognizing, understanding, embracing, and embodying. And that's what I love about that system, is it's really helping me find how I put my experiences through that lens, how it pulls through that lens of that fear, how I have the gate 12, which the shadow is vanity. I see that. Oh, I see that. And I can see it when it comes up. I'm like, oh, here I am again. But with
Mhm.
all of those shadows, you have a little higher vibration, which is the gift, and then the highest expression, which is the siddhi. And so with understanding those, and when you have that gate, it's a familiar energy. You recognize that. So you know that at any point you can tap into that of the siddhi and kind of help you pull out of that. So it's a beautiful process. So if you're kind of like, how do I find my shadows? How do I know where to start? Highly recommend going to human design or the gene keys, but human design, that's where I start.
Yeah. And
And
that's,
that.
I, I know how many times have I asked you, it's like, okay, I'm doing this, Tanya, what gate or what is the thing that I have?
Well, and we both have some similarities, right? We both have
Right.
that gate 16 as well. And so every now and then I'm like, oh, this is our shadow of indifference. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh man, that
Yep.
is so what's happening right now.
Yep.
So just that awareness, we're like, okay, this is where we are. How can we rise out of that? And so that's part of that too is, and I think that's important with all of shadow work, whether you're looking at your human design or you're just looking at everything in general.
Mhm.
This is not about killing it. It's not about, like, when you go back to the moon in the bedroom at night, you don't want to kill that little thing that's casting the shadow, and you don't want to kill the moon. You just want to turn a light on. And
Right.
and those shadows that we have built us. They are our foundation. Everything on top of that, like, that is that concrete cement slab that's holding everything there. We don't want to blast it. We just want to understand it. We want to see it. We want to know it's there and do the work around it so that we can continue to build. I think that's important, is not trying to kill off that part of us that holds that shadow. It's just, oh, I see you.
Right. I love that. I love the way you explained that. And yeah, it's definitely what it is. It's the seeing. It's like shame, right? When we have shame, when we're shame, we've had this shame and we're holding it so tight inside of us, and we're ashamed of whatever it is. Somebody told us years ago that we had hairy legs or something, and we have this shame that we're holding for, just holding on so tightly. And the minute that we find somebody who is worthy of sharing that little piece of shame with, it's gone, right? It's like we've shed the light on it, and now it's not, we don't have to hold on to it so tight. It's like now we can just kind of let it go and just be.
Mhm.
And so for me, that's the shadow. That's
Mhm.
just shining that light and allowing it to be what it is, but not holding on to it
Mhm.
so
And then
tight.
you get to decide if you want hairy legs or not, because it's your decision.
Yeah, right.
I I do, and it's always interesting to look at humans. I mean, I love the study of people.
Mhm,
And there are times where it's like, I am so in the gutter with this feeling or whatever. And then I see someone else who is approached with the same challenge or a similar challenge, and they're like, whatever, I don't even care.
mhm,
And I watched that and I'm like, they literally, that was water off a duck's back for them. And here I am in the depths of despair. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I
mhm,
taking this so seriously? And it's not, I don't turn it on like, what's wrong with me or what's wrong with them. I turn it on and look at it like, am I taking this too seriously?
mhm,
Do I have to have this and be swimming in this shame, this guilt, this sadness? And really, that the other people can be such an inspiration to me. I'm like, they just literally let that go and moved on.
mhm.
If they can do it, I can do it. I mean, so
Right,
there's some of those things too. I think people are the most powerful teachers that we have. And
right.
sometimes it's, I don't want to act like that. Sometimes I do. But even if it's not, I don't want to become them. I just want to be like, okay, this does impact me. I want to do this work around it and kind of figuring it out. But I also want to be able to release it and let myself let that move through.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think one other thing that's really important is that when we're working in that, don't stay in that shadow, right? because that's like what you were just talking about. Sometimes we do get bogged down in it. And I've been in it a little bit this last, what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's been a minute.
And
We've had a
and
lot of energy in the
yeah,
cosmos, so I get it.
and I catch myself just wallowing in it. And okay, that's all right for a short time. Wallow in it, be in it, let yourself, do what you need to do, but don't stay in you know, that spot, or that digging into, the shadow, or staying in the shadow, staying in the shadow, staying in the shadow. There's a time when you have to kind of allow that light to come in and um release that shadow, so
Yep. I think we could do an entire
yeah, I
episode.
have a tendency to want to, yeah, I'm sorry,
Oh, I was
what'd you
saying
say?
I think we could do an entire episode on that. I think we should. I
Yeah,
really
because
do.
I have a tendency to just and because I mean, we talk all the time, and I'll sit in it for however long, just wallowing, and it's like, no,
Hmm.
okay, you can for a short time, but not all time.
Time to
And
time to
some of
come out.
us, yeah, time to come out of that shadow, because some of us, I think, we feel like we get in that, and then we're like stuck, and what do I do, what do I do? And so that's where the work comes in, to start learning how to release too, because I think there's a whole, there are some things that will help you to release it easier than other things too, and it's a matter of you, it's your own uh ways of doing things, or how, what works best with you, but
Yeah, because
so
and I think every one of us will have a different way of coming out and a different time, a different speed at which
mhm,
we process and move through things. And I
mhm,
think, yeah, so I feel like learning how to release. I feel if you guys are watching this and you would like a video on release, put that in the comments, just write release and we will make sure, because I'm kind of curious to see how many people are like, oh, I need ideas. Because
yeah,
I have a
uh-huh,
lot popping in my head right now. And I'm like,
right.
well, so yeah, like let us know if you feel like this is the right track. If you're like, yes, please, put
Uh-huh,
that in the comments below. I'd love to know if that's something that our audience would love to hear.
right, definitely, yeah, because I'm thinking of different ways too, so
Yep. So other than that, do you feel like there's anything more we need to bring up or we could address around shadow work? Anything we might have
mm,
missed or last thoughts?
no, I think for me, I've, because like I said, I'm not the expert, you are.
This is my playground.
Yeah, you're the
It's
one.
so funny because even a couple days ago, I said to you, I'm like I love deep conversation.
Yeah.
I love rich conversation. I
Mhm,
love one-on-one conversation. If I get in a group, obviously you don't do this kind of work
mhm,
in a group. And so I'm kind of like, it's like when I can get one-on-one with people, oh man, well, there's the projector,
yeah.
but this is my playground. This is my
Mhm.
happy place. And so yeah, I I understand that I'm built a little differently than a lot of people because I'm like, dude, threaten me with a good time. Let's do some shadow work this weekend, you know?
Right.
So I get it. I'm not going to say that that's common. It is normal for me.
Mhm.
So I can't say that's not normal, but yeah, my fellow Scorpios out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. You get it. You get
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Us Pisces, we just like to float.
Yeah. 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 And I'm like, well, we're both water signs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and it's funny because I picture with shadow work, I picture that beautiful blue pool that is
Mhm.
like that light aqua
Yeah.
and then it goes dark, dark,
Mhm.
dark. And
Dark,
before
dark.
long, it's
Mhm.
almost black. And I'm like,
Yep.
I want to get up high so I can jump straight
Jump in.
down And then you're kind of like, we'll just kind of go under the surface
Yeah.
a little and
Yep.
just bob a
Yep.
little.
Yep.
I'm like, I'll come out eventually. Don't come get me.
Right.
It's fun. I love it.
Yeah.
So, all right, with that, we will go ahead and would you just do a nice little closing to help bring us back into our reality for a moment or
Okay.
whatever we want to call it.
All right. Go ahead and I'm gonna do another little spray here because
I think I am
I'm
too.
needing it again.
Shadows heavy.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in. Allow yourself to come back in to your body. With those roots that we connected earlier. Just allow that heavy to just release down to Mother Earth and she will compost that for us. Pulling back all pieces of you that you've sent out. Go ahead and open your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. I feel
yeah,
better.
me too. I definitely needed to pull it back in.
Get back in. Yes. All right. With that, please, as always, help us spread the word. Share this, like, comment, subscribe, all the good things, and we'll see you soon.